5 most powerful ancient civilizations that ever existed. The Incan civilization. The Incan Empire was said to be the largest empire in South America during the pre-Columbian era. This civilization had flourished in the areas of present-day Ecuador, Chile, and Peru and had its administrative, military, and political center at Cusco, which is in modern-day Peru. The Incan civilization was a very well-established and flourishing society. The Incas were incredibly devout followers of the sun god Inti, and their king was known as the Sapa Inca, meaning the child of the sun. When the king passed away, his son would get all the power, but his wealth would then be distributed among his other relatives, who in return would have to preserve his mummy and maintain his political influence. The Aztec civilization. The rise of the Aztecs was right within a century of the fall of yet another influential civilization in Mexico and Central America known as the Mayans. The city of Tenochtitlan was also the military power base and soon became a spearhead for the conquest of a new territory, but the Aztec emperor did not rule every city or region directly. During the early 1500s, the Aztec civilization was indeed at the very height of its power. But then, the Spanish had arrived. This then led to a huge battle between the Incas and the Spanish conquistadors and all the native allies they had assembled, which was led by the infamous Hernán Cortés back in 1521. A defeat in this decisive battle gradually led to the fall of the once famous Aztec Empire. The Roman civilization. Right at the height of its power, the Roman Empire had ruled over a huge chunk of land, and all of the present-day Mediterranean countries were once part of ancient Rome. Early Rome had been governed by kings, but after only 7 of them had actually ruled, the people then took control over their own city and ruled themselves. They had introduced a council called the Senate, which ruled over them, and from this point, Rome was then referred to as the Roman Republic. Rome had even seen the rise and fall of some of the greatest emperors in human history, like Julius Caesar, Trajan, and Augustus. But eventually, the empire became so incredibly vast that it was just not possible to bring it under a single rule. Ultimately, the Roman Empire was overrun by several millions of barbarians from the north and east of Europe. The Greek civilization. The ancient Greeks might not have been the oldest civilization, but they are undoubtedly one of the most influential. Even though the rise of ancient Greece had come from the Cycladic and Minoan civilizations, there is significant evidence of burials in the Fragdi cave in Argolid, Greece, that date back to around 7250 BC. The history of this civilization has since spread over such a long period of time that historians have divided it into various periods, the most popular of them being the Archaic, Classical, as well as Hellenistic periods. These periods had seen several ancient Greeks come into the limelight, many of whom have changed the world forever and are still being spoken about to this day. Among other things, the Greeks also invented the ancient Olympics and had formed the concept of democracy and the Senate. They even laid the foundations for modern geometry, biology, and physics. The history books are filled with names whose inventions, theories, beliefs, and heroics have since had a significant impact on all subsequent civilizations. The Chinese civilization. Ancient China, which was also known as Han China, has one of the most diverse histories. In fact, if you consider all of the dynasties from the very first to the last that ever ruled in China, a significantly massive period of time needs to be covered. The Yellow River civilization is also said to be the very beginning of the entire Chinese civilization, as this was where the earliest dynasties were based. It was around 2700 BC that the seemingly legendary Yellow Emperor began his rule, which later led to the birth of several dynasties that went on to rule mainland China. In 2070 BC, the Xia dynasty had become the first to rule the whole of China, as described in several ancient historical chronicles. From then on, there were various dynasties that held control during different periods of time, right until the end of the Qing dynasty back in 1912 AD with the Xinhai Revolution. This also marked the end of more than 4 millennia of ancient Chinese civilization.